are some of your well-known clients?
Have had the opportunity to work with Vernon Reid from Living Color. I've done guitars for Jimmy Buffett, for Lauryn Hill, jazz great Russell Malone.
Hey, welcome back to Music Explorer. For all you guitar heads out there, we have Luthier Leroy Aiello of Point Pleasant, New Jersey. He owns Aiello Guitars. Leroy got his start in the late 80s as a road guitar tech for Joe Jackson and Marshall Crenshaw. We're going to talk about mandolin and guitar repair and his time working with the Mandolin Brothers and what it takes to become a skilled luthier.
Leroy, how did you become a luthier? How did you get your start?
Well, like everybody else that is involved with what we do, and music and guitars in particular, I started with the love of guitars as a young boy, and it grew into playing like everybody and playing in high school. And then I wanted to be able to set up my own guitars and learn how to do it. So that's what I started to do. I got some books, and this is way before YouTube. So I was able to get some books and learn how to do it. And a few of my friends that were savvy with setting up intonation and setting up guitars a lot, they let me watch them and I learned from them. And then being able to do it relatively quick, I wound up getting a job touring and going on the road. But I toured primarily with Joe Jackson.
What years were these?
That was 86 till about 91, 92. And then in the interim, I also toured with Marshall Crenshaw. And I did a lot of record dates with bands like the Smithereens. But basically, when you're a guitar tech on the road, I mean, these guys are great. They have to problem solve, like, the guys on the road now, you have to problem solve in a second.
Yeah.
And the job was basically restring the guitars, clean them, set them up, make sure that they're playable at every show, and that they're ready to go. And that's what I did. But I wanted to take it a few steps farther and learn more about the guitar. As luck would have it, growing up on Staten Island, New York, there was a vintage guitar store called Mandolin Brothers. And I got a part-time job just restringing guitars. So from that point, there was an opening in the repair shop. And I began an apprenticeship in 1987 while I was going on the road. And I was still doing tours. And Stan J, the owner of the store, was so gracious. He allowed me to go on these tours and still work for him. I studied with a man named Flip Scipio, who was a master repairman and builder. And I studied with him through those years. And it got to a point in 1991 where I did my last tour with Joe Jackson. There were a lot of tours that were coming through for me at that point. Mick Jagger, Living Color, Melissa Etheridge. There were a bunch of tours, Bob Dylan. There were tours that were coming my way that I was thankful for, that I was going to take, but I didn't take them because I felt at that point that I wanted to learn more about rebuilding guitars and restorations. One of the road stories was just to go back to the Joe Jackson days. We had a tour where we had an 11-piece band, because he had a big band. And one of the dates, we were in Madison, Wisconsin, and one of the guitar players, unfortunately, fell ill. And the sound guy comes over to me with a Walkman and a pair of headphones and says, "Here's the tape of the show from last night. Learn it." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "The guitar player at the time fell ill. So you have to play the show tonight." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So I went into the dressing room with one of the guitars and a Walkman tape, and I learned the show. And I learned a good amount of the show. When the band came in for sound check, and Joe came in for sound check, he said to me, he says, "I only want you to play a couple of songs because we're going to let the other guitar player take over where the guitar player that was ill, used to play." I played 3 songs, and it was an incredible feeling, but it was nerve-wracking to be able to do that, have to do that in an afternoon.
Why did you want to go to Mandolin Brothers?
Players and collectors from all around the world would make stops at Mandolin Brothers, and it was like a Staten Island treasure to have that place so close to me. And then I took over running the repair shop in 1996 until 2010 when I left, and I opened up Aiello Guitars.
Describe your shop. Tell me what's different and what stands out from what you're doing than others don't.
I do all facets of repairs. The only thing that I don't do is complete refinishes. Is that I specialize in restorations, and I tend to get the guitars. It's like the land of misfit toys. I tend to get the guitars that nobody else really wants to work on because they're kind of quote unquote basket cases, or they're like beyond repair. And I try to do them in the style of the builder or the company of the guitars that that I'm working on, so that it looks period and looks correct. Like one of the instruments that I work on a lot are D'Angelico guitars. John D'Angelico was a builder in between the 32 and 64, and he built primarily jazz guitars. And those instruments they're works of art, and they're literally Steinways of the guitar world.
And what does it take to become a really crafted luthier?
You have to have the love for the instrument first of all. That's the main thing, and just kind of research the history on it and kind of get into and love the instrument itself. So it's a matter of learning these different woodworking skills, and depends how far you want to take it too.
So what are some of the restorations or jobs that you've done that really are your pride and joy of what you've accomplished?
There was a guitar that I had gotten. Again, it was a D'Angelico, and there's not a lot of them around. There's only about 1160, I think, or 64, or something like that. This guitar came, and this is no exaggeration, this guitar came to me in a bag. It came in a plastic bag. The case was destroyed. The gentleman walked in with the case in one hand and the guitar in another, in a plastic bag. Looked at the guitar. He thought it was a lower line D'Angelico, and it in fact was not. It was a very rare electric D'Angelico. It was an electric guitar. John didn't make many electric guitars, and the ones that he did were plywood. They were laminated instruments. This was a hand-carved, top-of-the-line D'Angelico, but it came in a bag. The back was split open, so I restored that instrument from the ground up. I had to take it completely apart. So I actually had to rebuild that wood and re-brace the guitar. One of the famous guitars that I got to see, which was incredible to see, was Eric Clapton's SG, which is actually a Les Paul from the early 60s. It was his SG that he used in cream. The multicolored SG, that guitar I got to authenticate for an auction. It was up for auction.
Wow. You got to have pictures of that,
I
right?
actually got to take that. It was crazy. I got to take the guitar apart, completely apart. I had to put it under black light to authenticate it. And it was just, as I'm taking the guitar apart, I'm like, this is cream.
This is history, man.
I mean, he played, yeah, it's crazy. It was
awesome.
crazy. That was one of those guitars where the fanboy in me had to, you have to subdue that. Like, go in the back room and, go in the back room while I do this, Like the fanboy was like, I didn't want to get too excited about it, but it was, that was a really cool guitar to see.
What's the worst thing that happened to you in the restoration business?
Oh my goodness. I was working on a golden era Martin guitar, and I had to do a neck set on it. And someone else had been in there and done a neck set on it. I knew that going in. But what you don't know going in is what kind of glue they used.
Right.
So the gentleman that did this guitar decided to use an epoxy, which is not meant to come apart. So when I went to steam the neck off and take the neck off, gently and gingerly, as we put steam into the instrument to soften the glue, you move the neck back and forth. Well, the neck came out all right with the sides of the guitar. The sides split completely around the hourglass of the acoustic, almost all the way around the entire side of the guitar. So here I am holding the guitar like a tennis racket, like a broken tennis racket.
Who are some of your well-known clients?
I've had the opportunity to work with Vernon Reid from Living Color. I've done guitars for Jimmy Buffett, for Lauryn Hill, jazz great Russell Malone, a lot of session people in New York. So they weren't necessarily touring, touring musicians, but a lot of session guys, you know.
So Leroy, it's great. It's been great talking to you today about mandolins, guitars, and being a luthier. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we'll be talking to you soon. Have a good day.